Aw, Pikmin, aren't they adorable, but most importantly useful, right? So now we will cover how useful exactly each of the 9 Pikmin types are in Pikmin 4, how each of them behaves and how good they are. To make stuff more clear, we are using these tables right here for each of the Pikmin. This is showing off their strengths and weaknesses. Oh yeah, this template is using the average stats by the way, so values higher are strengths while a lower value marks a weakness, for the respective Pikmin of course. Okay, to explain this real quick, we are having the name of the Pikmin on top, followed by a cute portrait. Then we get to see how much damage they deal, how strong they can carry, how fast they are. This is also split up into 4 states. The leaf, the bud, not this bud, yeah exactly, this one. The flower, and the spicy state. As their running speed varies depending on which state your Pikmin is. Makes sense, right, as they are still plants after all. After that we have their efficiency while digging, how high you can throw them, and which sort of hazards they're resistant to. Phew, quite a bit, huh? But if you didn't fully understand this yet, don't even worry, we'll get to this in a second, and it's more simple than you might think. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started with the first Pikmin type. Red Pikmin. These red fellas will be your best friend when getting started with any of the Pikmin games, as you will find these little guys usually first every time. And this isn't a bad thing at all, as they are really useful in combat and deal an extra 50% damage to enemies, making them a good choice for basically any fight, as long there are no other hazards around, as they are only immune to fire. Next up we got Yellow Pikmin. Their yellow color is shocking, and I mean shocking! They are immune to electricity, but are also lighter than regular Pikmin and therefore can be thrown higher up to reach edges previously thought to be impossible to get up to. But they also shine in another category, which is digging, where they are your best choice with a whopping ×4 speed in digging, making them easily unchallenged the best diggers by far. Let's move over to Blue Pikmin. They are the only Pikmin being able to swim and breathe underwater. However, that's basically it. They are awesome in water areas or sections surrounded by water sprinklers, but outside of that, they shouldn't really be your prioritized Pikmin species to go with, as the remaining stats are pretty average. Guys, sorry, I didn't meant to say that. Now let's talk about Purple Pikmin. Oh my gosh, this is basically a sumo fighter Pikmin. First of all, their strength is the same as for Red Pikmin, but their stomp will deal 4 times the damage as usual. Or for comparison, the stomp alone has the power of the damage of 6 blue Pikmin. Also, if you want to transport stuff, they are also really useful, as 1 purple Pikmin has the strength of any other 10 Pikmin. However, these guys are really heavy and ridiculously slow on the field, though if you mainly use them for combat, taking them with you on Ochi should be a really good bet. Just watch out for enemies with specific element requirements, as they only resist wind and bubbles due to their massive weight. Jumping over to White Pikmin. Here we have some really toxic creatures. And dude, I mean really toxic. Almost every enemy who is going to eat up these Pikmin will get poisoned and take a lot of damage, if not even die instantly due to it. Now you might think they are tough little guys, but in reality they are not. At least if you don't plan to sacrifice all of your white Pikmin, that is. Because their damage is really low and just half of the average attack strength. And if your white Pikmin are getting squished or stomped by any other hazards around, their poison effect won't come in handy, only if they get eaten up. So by now you should know these guys are immune to poison and are of course your first option for poisonous enemies or areas, which a white Pikmin should clear out first. But their major strength is carrying stuff, as these little guys are by far the fastest Pikmin and will come around in no time. So if you want to transport something back to your base quickly, they should be your first pick. Oh yeah, and it was totally intentional, saying little guys the entire time, as white Pikmin are the shortest Pikmin species out there. At least out of the known ones. Who knows? Now let's spice some things up with Rock Pikmin. Our rock-shaped fellas behave a little different than all the other Pikmin in battle. Instead of sticking to enemies and permanently dealing damage, these Pikmin instead bounce off the enemy and will try to roll against them at the lowest part. If you don't want that to happen, you need to whistle them back to you and throw them again. This also prevents rock Pikmin to get shaken off the enemy's bodies. But their strength is really useful, being 4 times as high as the average value. This makes them, along with purple Pikmin, to the best fighters in the game. Even though they have no element to their rock nature, they are immune to getting stabbed or even stomped by any enemies, which makes some dangerous enemies harmless for rock Pikmin. By the way, they are also the only type of Pikmin which can destroy walls of glass or crystals. And now let's go to another perspective with Wing Pikmin. These little creatures are the only Pikmin that have no resistancy whatsoever, but still they are able to fly over water as they have both feet and wings. But be careful, if thrown they can still drown in water. They won't try to rescue themselves unless you whistle them back to you, exactly like the other Pikmin. Overall, their only strength is their wings and therefore their ability of transporting goodies back to your base, as they can use shortcuts over water places or even safely glide down off a cliffside. As for combat, they are weaker than the average Pikmin and only should be used against flying enemies, as you can still make use of the swarm attack by sending out all winged Pikmin all at once against an enemy in the air. Let's continue with the cool guys, Ice Pikmin. At first you might think these guys aren't too strong, seeing their attack value being as low as white and winged Pikmin. However, in reality, they are really powerful, as they can freeze most enemies in the game, which prevents any sort of movement for a short amount of time. And the more Ice Pikmin you got, the quicker an enemy can get stunned and therefore sent back into an ice block. To nerf their strength, they do burn down quicker though, so be careful with your Ice Pikmin if fiery hazards are around. After all, they can freeze any sort of water places and most enemies, making them a good option to take them into combat if you don't plan on producing more Pikmin. But you could also just time it correctly and wait out the freeze timer to kill the enemy afterwards to still get the dead body, resulting in you farming even more Pikmin. So it's just about how you strategize your next fight with these cold guys. And last but not least, Glow Pikmin. Yeah, Glow Pikmin are really different compared to the others. First, they are similar to Pikmin 2's Boltman, being immune to nearly every hazard in the game, and also being locked behind nighttime mode only until you obtain glow seeds. Then they can also be taken into the actual main adventure. However, this only applies to caves, as their ghostly appearance make them only available in dark places. But the main reason which makes them this powerful is their charge attack, where they all gather their powers to stun an enemy for a short time, similar to what Ice Pikmin do, but stronger. Well, of course Glow Pikmin are by far the strongest Pikmin, but this is due to them only being intended to use during the nighttime mode, where you have to fight many dangerous waves of creatures at the same time, and therefore they didn't really got balanced out. And there you have it. That's all the Pikmin types, and which their biggest strengths and weaknesses are. But which of them is the strongest now? Well, you can't really answer that, as everything is really situational, depends on your personal playstyle and from which kind of obstacles you're currently surrounded by. However, if we are just talking about pure combat, without any special elements required, we can surely say the best to go with options are Purple, Rock and Ice Pikmin. Especially mixing up these three is really powerful. Excluding Glow Pikmin, of course. Here we are at the end of this journey, and I'm pretty certain you enjoyed what you have seen. Otherwise you wouldn't have watched till this point. Am I right? If so, make sure to become a Pikmin yourself by hitting that subscribe button, as we are getting closer to the 100 subs. And tell me your favorite Pikmin type. Take care!